Good evening. You're watching Wake Up America. I'm Dorothea DiCecco, and I think you will enjoy our program this evening. Lots of information to people that live in the greater Winstead area. I will let my guests do most of the talking because they're the ones we need to hear from. But I just like to say that the purpose is to let the area people know, and beyond the area for that matter, about the Mad River Market that they're proposing and working on and raising funds for and membership, and I think it's extremely important for everybody to know about it. So I will introduce first of all Philip Allen. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you very
Philip
much.
is the project manager of the Mad River Market, and I'll just move on to Peter Anderhagen, who is a board member. I guess they're both board members, but your title is board member. And the two of you will intersect with one another and give us, if one doesn't say enough, the other one will take over and add to it, whatever. But look forward to all of this evening. Thank you for watching, and let's start with you, Philip. Tell us about the market.
And what
some
it
of
is.
its history, what it
Very
is,
good.
and that'll be a good start.
Well, the first thing that people need to know is that Mad River Market is a food co-op startup. We will be a full-service grocery that is cooperatively owned by all of its member owners together. However many thousands join as member owners, those will all be co-equal owners of our business. We came together in response to the pending closure of the Winstead Super Saver IGA back in 2015. The former owner, John Dwan, was at retirement age and was looking for a way to move on with his life, and he tried very, very hard for a very long time to find a buyer. But was unable to find a buyer either in the Independent Grocers Association community or Trader Joe's or any of the other chains. No one was interested in buying his business. And he actually was the person who initiated the conversation about whether or not a food co-op might be a way forward to preserve the market. Great number of people got together and started talking about the idea and seeing what we could do in the atmosphere of urgency of having the last downtown grocery in the city of Winstead close. 40 years ago, there were more than a dozen neighborhood markets, and by the time that John bought the IGA back in the early 80s, there were only 3, and he was the last standing. And we came together hoping that we would be able to essentially put together a food co-op, take over the ownership of the IGA and transition it from being a conventional grocery to cooperative ownership with probably a whole change in product line and so on. As it came to pass, John's timeline and the timeline it takes to create a co-op were not at all in sync. And John needed to sell, and he ended up selling the property, the real estate, to actually Community Health and Wellness of Greater Torrington. But that meant that site was no longer available to us, and so we started looking around for other potential sites and turned our attention to what we were finding out was the very complex and very hard work necessary to build a co-op so that we would be able to return a full-service grocery into our downtown. We incorporated at the end of April of 2017. We formed a board of directors, we promulgated bylaws, we've done all of that kind of basic organizational stuff, and we started getting out in the community and trying to convince people that yes, it's a good idea for people to want to be part of this venture and become co-owners with all the rest of us and build this business that would serve not just Winstead, but will serve The surrounding communities, including parts of Torrington, Norfolk, Goshen, Coldbrook, Barkhamsted, Heartland, New Hartford, Harwinton, and we have shareholders in Morris. We have shareholders in Kent. They're all over because there are reasons above and beyond just having a convenient neighborhood market for being part of a co-op and being part of what that represents. Is that a fair?
I can ditto everything of that. There are more reasons for being a co-op member and owner than just that you're going to get food that you like and it'll be organic. There's a whole community aspect of it, as well as a business ownership aspect of it. And the idea of a cooperative is not particularly recognized in this country in the academic world. We deal with capitalism, we deal with socialism. We don't deal very much and know very much about cooperativism.
Even though actually cooperatives are everywhere.
Exactly.
Less in Connecticut for a variety of historical reasons than we would hope, but cooperatives exist in. There we go. Cooperatives exist as producer co-ops, which is the most common ones are agricultural. So, for example, Cabot Dairy, Cabot Creamery is a cooperative of milk producers who produce dairy products and is a huge business. Ocean Spray Cranberry is a cranberry producer cooperative. Farmer's Cow, based in eastern Connecticut, is another farmer cooperative, a producer cooperative. Credit unions are all co-ops. They're the co-ops of the financial sector. They're governed by a whole separate set of law because they are banks, but they are cooperatives. And then there are utility co-ops, especially you find those in the Appalachian South and in parts of the Midwest. The common thread of all cooperatives is that they come together. They are formed to meet by a community comes together, has a need, and identifies a cooperative as the way to satisfy that need. And whether that need is providing fresh food for your family and provisioning your family for the through the course of your week or month, or whether it's people wanting electrical power to be distributed to everybody in their region. So cooperatives come together to make these things happen. Food co-ops are one of the most common retail forms of it's a consumer co-op in the sense that it's people who want to be customers of, ultimately they're going to be customers of the business. And the way to make that happen is by pooling our resources, pooling our talents, our vision, our overall outlook. We're able to create something that goes beyond being a grocery store to being a really dynamic part of the local economy. Local food co-ops all of us tend to have a focus on sourcing from local producers wherever possible, whether it's produce or meats or dairy or household goods. If we can find local producers, we will be stocking those preferentially over buying something from a corporation way, way far away.
Which will encourage local people to maybe think of being suppliers where they never
absolutely.
would have. A lot of young people,
and not just young people,
yeah, but
yes.
are interested in farming and growing animals. And I mean, it's hard finding work these days.
Sure.
And many younger and older people, as you say. Yeah, I think it's marvelous.
Many co-ops, many food co-ops have, especially in the last five years or so, been positioning themselves to be test beds for new product development. So that somebody in our community, for example, decides that their passion is ice cream and they want to make ice cream. Well, our co-op can be a place for them to give a trial run for their products, see if they've got a market out there. if they've got a product that is going to attract people's attention and palate. Many co-ops have played that role within their communities where small businesses are able to have an invaluable test market, if you will. We look forward to being able to do that with either, whether it's an existing farm or business that wants to branch out into something new, or it could be a completely new business wanting to establish itself from the get-go. The ice cream happens to be, I know a guy who would really like to be setting up to make ice cream if he could put all the pieces together.
Yes.
That's the trick, putting all the pieces together.
Well, and that's something that cooperatives can play a role in helping that happen too. Yeah. In the course of doing this, I mean, we're our kind of co-op. We are not a nonprofit. We are organized as a for-profit business, but we like to explain the difference as being that yes, we're for-profit, but it's for community profit. Ultimately, our co-owners, our member owners, are going to have concrete material benefits from being an owner, whether it's through patronage refunds, special sales opportunities, etc. But nobody's ever going to add to their retirement fund in a meaningful way based on their profit distributions being a member. There are some investment opportunities involved in all of this for our member owners, but that's a different subject. But the part of the benefit of being in this whole process is that we're going to be earning profit. We need a sustainable business. We want a business that's going to be here for 20 years and 40 years, or like Putney, Vermont Food Co-op. They are 78 years old this year. Willimantic is 39. Fiddleheads is 11. For the two local folks. We want to build that kind of a business, which means that we can't get all fluffy bunny about it. We have to be very hard-headed about.
Sure.
We're involved in a business in a sector that's extremely competitive and doesn't forgive mistakes easily. So we have to, on one hand, be very realistic, very solid in terms of how we approach our business organization, but it's business guided by a vision and a mission that is, again, for community. We have three basic values for Mad River Market. It's eat healthy, buy local, and build community. And everything that we do throughout our organizing, and ultimately when we open our doors, everything that our market will do will be funneled through those three values. Are we promoting healthy food in our community? Are we helping people eat healthy? Are we buying local? Are we encouraging our local economy? Are we keeping our dollars in our community? And by doing all of these various things, how are we building community? How are we making our communities not only healthier and more economically vibrant, but healthy in other aspects, which can be expressed through the kinds of education that we can offer on wide-ranging subjects, how we can partner with other community organizations to address issues of concern in our communities, not just food access and food justice, but wider concerns as well. And there are proven methods that food co-ops have been putting into place in directing some of the profit of our operations so that it directly benefits communities as directed by our member owners.
And that's an important point.
Very important point.
It's a very important point that the owner, shareholders, whatever we want to call them, have a say in the values of the market.
So you have regular meetings, let's say, or
well, yes,
the board, of course.
The board meets regularly, and we have standing committees doing different aspects of the work. A finance committee, obviously, a governance committee. Outreach is our most important activity right now, and that's that's our main. Our most of our activity is directed to outreach and getting the work, doing things like this program tonight, and helping people, one, learn about co-ops basically, because a lot of people don't really know much about a cooperative, or they had experience in the late 60s, early 70s in that early wave of co-op formation that was characterized by and large with really chaotic or lack of organization, left a lot of people with really bad memories. And I don't want to be part of a co-op because that was this crazy hippie chaos, and we don't want that. So actually, one of the differences between modern co-ops is we don't have a work requirement. In the old days, it was a sweat equity deal for the most part. We do not have that. We have the provision for, if somebody really wants to become a member owner but just simply cannot swing the share price, we will find ways to make that available, and if that involves for that individual some reciprocity of, they do this kind of work on our behalf and we credit that towards their share. But it's not something that we require. And it's not something that we're open to it, but we don't stress that. The other common difference in the old generations of co-ops was that you had to be a member of a co-op to be able to actually participate in buying any products. And that is not what really anyone does anymore. And so anybody and everybody will be able to shop at our market, irrespective of whether they're an owner or not. But there are benefits to ownership, and we certainly will encourage people to become member owners forever. We will never stop welcoming people to become part of this. And we look forward to the day when, like, Berkshire Food Co-op has over 3,000 member owners now. There are co-ops in the Midwest that have way more than that.
Well, like Recreational Equipment Company.
Oh, REI, yes. REI has millions of member owners.
And has been operating for I don't know how many years.
Since 1938. Started as a consumer co-op and grew into being a producer consumer co-op because they ultimately started commissioning their own products.
I'm thinking of when I go into a store, large supermarket, the way they are set up, and say you go into the vegetable department and fruit and whatever, and I'm thinking like of potatoes, for example. I just feel they look old for the most part, as opposed to the smaller co-op type stores or smaller for-profit individual stores that I feel that look for local food for the most part. And I'm aware that there are some around that exist, but not that close. But I'm just saying that you get the feeling that it's fresh because it's like a farmer's market in a sense, right?
Things haven't traveled as far.
Yes, it haven't traveled as far. That's what I'm saying. Old potatoes.
From South America.
From South America, Mexico, things. And some things have to come far because we can't grow them around here. But there's a good feeling when you're in there and just feeling the freshness and the cleanliness of this food. You don't feel like it's been going, as you say, coming weeks in a truck, being refrigerated and frozen or dried or whatever they do. But the other part, like you say, belonging to this and seeing it develop and people that share this with you, obviously like-minded people, are going to enjoy seeing each other. It can become a social thing when you go there. I'm just saying all the other little things
these all play a role.
Yeah, they do.
Feed in.
And people aren't doing that much anymore. Well, we're seeing each other less and less with the television and cell phones and all that kind of thing, and bookstores. People don't go to bookstores as much as they used to, even though I know in Winstead you have one now that's doing its best. But it's just making us more human, I think is important too.
And feeling good about the place we work because
That's
we
right.
have some input into what happens.
Yes.
Because the products are going to be the consequence of the board and the shareholder members. Would you say that?
Basically, yes. All of in terms of, this was, of course, another major difference in the way that cooperatives are organized. Cooperatives are democratically governed.
That's an important point.
It is. It's very different, and it's that ownership, that democratic control is more concentrated than it would in a traditional stock company. Where if you own a share in General Electric, your voice is negligible. It really doesn't exist as any kind of force that could have any way to direct what General Electric does. But
because your voice depends upon the number of shares you hold.
Right. And here it's just one person and one
important.
share and one vote.
Wonderful. It really
So
is.
in the course of in the way that, practically speaking, obviously we have a board that makes various decisions in exercising its fiduciary responsibility for realizing the mission and so on. But any really critical question must ultimately go before the shareholders in a meeting, in a formal meeting where questions are posed, the different positions are discussed and voted. And so, for example, most open co-ops have programs where you either, often they're round up at the register programs so that for a given month, everything that's donated in that way gets ultimately earmarked for a specific community entity of whatever it may be. And so over the course of the year, normally they're set up so that every month it's a different organization that benefits. So, for example, in January, when one year the designated beneficiary might be the Susan B. Anthony project in Torrington, or it could be White Memorial, or it could be a food pantry project in New Hartford or wherever. But what would happen is that in the run-up to the meeting where that would be decided, shareholders, member owners could nominate the organization of choice that they want to support, and the entire voting membership will say, yes, these are the ones we're going to support.
Wonderful.
Prairie Food Co-op, I believe they're somewhere in Wisconsin. In 2018, through their Roundup and other register-based donation programs, were able to contribute almost $40,000 to 12 different organizations in their community, and so it'll be the shareholder. All of our member owners together will make those kinds of choices. Or if, for example, if it emerges that it's a really, really strongly held value of our member owners that they direct the board and ultimately our store management to do absolutely everything possible to get to zero packaging and zero waste. That's the kind of value that is informed by our member owners. Our member owners could come to a decision that, well, rather than distributing profit, we'd rather have that extra money go towards supporting programs that help the most disadvantaged of our community have more access to the co-op, to the kind of food that we can support. The Green Top Grocery in Ithaca, New York, has something they call the Flower Program. It's an acronym that they chose the word and then figured out something to make make sense. Yeah. But the Flower Program is a 12% discount off all purchases for anybody who qualifies for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program or WIC or Public Assistance or SSDI, any of those programs. It's an additional off-the-top discount that the member owners have said, it's worth us to divert some of our profit so as to be able to help support people who are who are the poorest of our community, who, if anything, have a greater need for access to fresh and healthy local food.
Yes.
That's the kind of thing that we anticipate our member owners are going to be informing us all along the way of, we want you to do that. We want you to figure out a way to make sure that that happens, so that we want to stay viable, we want to stay sustainable, but we want to do it in a way that makes our market as accessible as possible to those who would otherwise be perhaps precluded.
And reflects the values.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it also teaches people what democracy really is, because right now I don't think we know very much about it. When you look at elections and people that are running and how much money they need, so they're beholden to the money givers and all that kind of thing. And people as individuals don't feel connected to anything, and it's easy to pull them in one direction or another by making all kinds of promises. But this is sincere, and I mean, the two of you are committed to it, and you're doing it, in a serious way. You're not just saying, well, we'd like to have this wonderful thing. It sounds like you've really researched this and have done this for a few years now.
The learning curve has been intense.
I think it is. I mean, from what you're saying, there's so much.
One of the advantages that we have is the support of regional and national organizations that exist for the express purpose of helping us do this job. And we're being guided by a suite of best practices that's called the 4 Cornerstones and 3 Stages model. It was developed by Food Co-op Initiative. They basically looked at some 20 years of successful startups, and there was of those early co-ops of the late 60s and 70s, well, some of those survived. Some of those did really well. Berkshire Food Co-op in Great Barrington is an example of that generation. Willimantic is an example of that generation. So they went and they looked at the successful co-ops and how they got from where they started to being a 30 or 40-year-old successful food co-op business, and also the experience of all of the various startup projects that have happened all over the country, and distilled it down to a really concise, very thorough best practices model, where the 4 cornerstones are capital, talent, systems, and vision, and you work on developing those different parts all along the way. The first stage is basic organizing. The second, stage 2 is divided into 2A and 2B. 2A is feasibility, where you prove your feasibility of a business, and then once you've done that, you transition into the real hardcore planning. And then stage 3 is everything that you have to do to actually get your doors open, which includes things like hiring a general manager and deciding on your a location and doing all the practical building out stuff,
and also a substantial membership.
Well, the building our member owner base is going to continue forever. Right. It's always we're always going to be doing that, but we're going to have to raise an awful lot of money, and a good chunk of that is going to have to come from our member owners themselves. We're currently looking at a projected budget of $2.7 million for to get our store open and operating for a good 6 months or so after that. And of that $2.7 million, half of it is going to need to come through shareholder loans or preferred share sales. This is the part that where member owners are actually going to be able to make an investment that can make a difference in their financial planning. And it will be set up at interest rates will have to be preferable to what you could get for a certificate of deposit. Not that it's hard to beat that, but there's a Fredericksburg Food Co-op in Fredericksburg, Virginia, is a startup that's just launched their shareholder loan campaign. they're paying up to 6% on that would obviously be larger amounts for a longer period of time. And 3 days in, and they're already at almost 30% of their goal. This is a group that have blown all the records out of the water for the speed with which they've been able to develop. I have deep envy.
But it's great that you have models
we have
to
those
refer
models.
to and support you, because you're just not up there saying, let's
we're
do
not,
this.
Yeah, we're not pulling this out of our hats.
No, and it's obvious, and that's important for people to see this.
It's made a difference for some
Yeah.
people in terms of our talking. When I say, well, it's not a bunch of very well-intentioned
Yes,
people sitting
that's-
around a kitchen
sure.
table
That's right.
thinking, oh, gee, let's do this.
Yeah, no,
or even, or the Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland, oh, we've got a barn, let's put on a show. Sort of thing.
Well,
It's
that's
not
good.
quite,
No.
it's not quite like that.
It's obvious. The seriousness of this is
we
very
have
obvious.
we
to
have
me.
FCI, the Food Co-op Initiative. We have the neighboring Food Co-op Association, which is the New England Regional Group. They have been basically walking side by side with us on this journey from the very beginning, providing guidance and counsel, and have made available to us. We participate every month in a conference call with other startups who are in the same, more or less the same stage that we're at. As project manager, I can get on the phone if I want to, or send out an email, and I can get advice from easily a dozen people in our area who are doing the exact same work, or who have done it and have insights to offer. And the sharing of stuff, the sharing of graphic ideas and approaches and all of that is freely given. One of the cooperative there are 7 cooperative principles, and one of them, principle number 6, is cooperation among cooperatives, and that translates into. The general manager of the Berkshire Food Co-op back in 2015 spent hours with people from Winstead, showing them around their store and talking about cash flows and so on. They're doing over $8 million a year in sales up there, and have gone. They're going to be having their ribbon cutting on their brand new purpose-built building in May.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're that far along.
Yes.
After this will be their 3rd location, and the first time that they own their real estate. They've rented up till now.
Yes. So, do you have thoughts about that? I mean, obviously you do. The membership is very important at this time, and talking like this, putting this out on this. See, this program hits 8 surrounding towns, and it goes. So we can air these, some of them now, but in a few weeks or another month we can do this again.
Certainly.
keep it going, because people don't always manage to see everything. But that part is great, and people don't know. I don't know about co-ops. I've not been part of this, and it's very interesting to me to hear that they exist everywhere, like you're saying, more in some states than others, and hopefully there'll be more here. But go ahead.
The first co-op was in England.
Yes.
Oh, is that right?
1834?
1844.
Yes.
44.
The Rochdale Partners. It grew out of the Industrial Revolution in England, in a working class community where they were their issue was just being able to provision themselves. It wasn't specifically directed to food as much as everything they needed.
Wow,
and wanting to be independent of the company store sort of model.
Yes.
They formed in a little town called Rochdale, and it still exists. The Rochdale Cooperative still exists.
How many years ago?
1844. Now, concurrent and in an entirely separate stream of development, especially in the Black South, there is a long history of cooperative development in the Black communities in the South, again, as communities needing to become self-sufficient to provide for themselves in ways that the larger community was not willing to do. We'll be polite and explain it that way.
Yes.
So in the United States, there are actually two very powerful but different streams of development, and especially in the rural South, black farmer cooperatives are very, very strong and have played I guess you would say almost an outsized role as a focus of community organizing. And as the world moved through Reconstruction into Jim Crow, into the Civil Rights era, black cooperatives have always been very close to the core of these developments, especially black women in leadership. It's a
wonderful history.
It's a complementary strain of development that, especially in the recent period, there's more and more conscious effort at bringing those two streams together, especially from the point of view of what the experience of black cooperatives has to teach the rest of us. It's been very, very interesting to participate in some of that discussion.
Again, that history we don't know. It's just
no.
happened, and people, if they need something, I mean, they can either suffer and go nowhere, or they can do this, as you say, and it's just using ordinary people in a sense, their brain power, their willingness to cooperate and work together. But if they see the benefits, of course, then they'll be encouraged to add more. Other people will join, and hopefully that's what would happen here.
Well, it's been slow, but yes, that's how it works.
It's just and it's great to not have to think, you want to do this yourself, in a sense, yourselves. Yes, please.
Yeah, no, that's the point. It's the way capitalism works is if you have the money, you buy the shares and you're the boss. That's not the way a cooperative works. A cooperative has to have cooperation of everyone.
Yes.
One person, one share, one vote.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, in capitalism, again, yes, you have the money, you buy whatever, and you get the profits, right? That's the
right.
thing. That's why they're doing it, not to be nice to anybody. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I'll grant that some of them do it to be nice.
Yes, but I'm just saying,
I understand.
As a rule,
But in
when
general,
you think of it,
the last thing that's anybody's concern is the social benefit.
The social benefit, and it does happen, but this is wonderful. I mean, it's just humane, democratic, right? And it's just something that I think would attract people that hear about it. And now, if they join this, is there a lower limit, or have you decided any of that? I mean, one must contribute something, right, financially?
Well, a share costs $200. That can be bought outright, obviously, or it can be bought on any kind of time payment that makes sense.
Yes.
We don't want the share price to be a barrier to anyone being able to participate.
Yes.
We do feel we've actually set up we've got a sort of dedicated fund that if somebody wanted to make a donation to help somebody else be able to achieve share ownership, well, we'll have a fund that can do that.
Nice.
Number of cooperatives have similar kinds of programs in place, so that if somebody somebody wants a subsidized share, they can approach us and say, I really want this for me and my family, but I just can't make this, I can't pull this out of my already limited budget. And there are many people in our communities for whom $20 a month is a real sacrifice.
Oh, no question. Yes.
And there are others for whom $200 is pin money for a week.
Yeah, that's true.
But we don't want that. We want equal economic participation, because that's one of the cooperative principles. You want everyone to have skin in the game in that sense. It's not saying somebody can make a major loan to the co-op, and it's not going to convey to them anything. They're not going to get anything more from that
Then the good feeling that they made a contribution.
Yes,
that
sure.
they're helping make this that
Yes.
make this happen, and the gratitude of everybody who
Oh, of
like,
course.
oh, we're so grateful that you're able to do this.
It is a good way to use your money if you have lots of it. And,
It's a way to have a if I were sitting on a pile of money and I had the choice of investing in Amazon versus this,
Yes, of
I might I might ultimately be able to realize greater return on my Amazon investment, but what I'm not by doing that, I'm not contributing anything really to the community in which I live.
Yes.
But as a shareholder, as a member owner of the co-op, I'm helping ensure good jobs at good wages that are overwhelmingly going to be local folk in the community are going to benefit from those jobs.
Yes.
We're going to be supporting local farmers and the people that they support, local producers, local ranchers, local dairies. All of the economic multiplier of $1 spent in a co-op, a locally sourced co-op, is something on the order of $1.60. So that for every $1 spent, there's an additional 60 cents activity that flows from that.
Really matters. Yes.
And you can shop at a Trader Joe's or an Aldi's. Those are reasonably good companies, as reasonably socially responsible. But no matter how socially responsible they are, most of that money is going to leave the community.
Yes.
It's going to go to a corporate headquarters somewhere else.
Sure. Yes.
But when you shop at a co-op, that money, for the most part, or rather more than it would be otherwise, will stay local through one kind of, whether it's what the co-op purchases, who the co-op employs, the people who are employed by the people who supply the co-op. All of that tends to be very, very local. And I expect that we're actually in a wonderful part of the world where there are so many farms, so many agricultural operations within even just 50 miles.
Yes.
As opposed to the poor folk in Park Slope, Brooklyn, they call local anything within 500 miles.
Oh, yes. Now there's a wide resource here.
We're really fortunate in having a really diverse agricultural sector, lots and lots of wonderful products.
Yeah, and it introduces your members and customers to that fact, because again, going into a quote regular store, you buy milk or butter or vegetables, and you don't know where you just read something, maybe it'll say Mexico or California, but here you'll get to know that, in Goshen there are a few goat farms there, and maybe there's some cheese they're going to bring, or milk, or whatever.
And what most modern co-ops make a point of actually, like if you're selling somebody's lettuce, somewhere in that produce section is going to be a sign with a picture of the farm and the farmers.
Yes, I've seen that. It's
because
great.
you want people.
Oh, you do.
Especially these, as the organic certification has become corrupted, frankly.
Yes.
They now the official USDA standards for organic are essentially meaningless, unfortunately.
I know, it's a shame.
So it becomes ever more important that if you want to know your food, you have to know your farmer.
That's what I
and
think is
so
very attractive.
If you have a farmer, I know there are plenty of farmers who have chosen not to go through the extremely expensive process of getting a USDA organic certification for increasingly good reasons, not to want to be essentially contaminated with that corrupted label. Well, if you know your farm, our produce buyers are going to know the farmers.
Absolutely.
And yes, we know that they're growing organically. So what we end up saying is this is organically grown, not certified.
Yes.
But because we know the farmer and we have that trust,
wonderful. Absolutely.
That's one of the reasons that attracts farmers to wanting to participate, is that as opposed to having to schlep their stuff all over creation to one market after another, they'll know that there's a place where 7 days a week.
I like hearing this very much.
their
Yeah.
products would have a market, and with less stress and strain on them, and greater.
They can do their farming instead of
Yeah.
setting up shop.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. But see, we started off talking about, what is a co-op and so forth, but now there are all these little branches and directions that we're going in where, as you say, it helps farmers. It makes people happy to know they're eating something grown locally that's clean and chemical free as much as possible, whatever.
Sure.
And
lower
and
carbon
that's how
footprint.
you get healthier. You are what you eat. Not that it's only food, but there's no question. They've adulterated the food. You go into a supermarket, and now you find like 90% of the stuff is inedible. It's just chemicals, and they substitute colors for real, food and flavors, and it's amazing what the chemists have done. And people eat this stuff, and they're getting more ill from the food, in addition to everything else, of course. But this is bringing you back to the way food production should be, and food sales, and what a store should be.
I think so.
As a kid, we had neighborhood stores, and we would talk and know the people, and not that you have to know everybody, but it's just a good feeling being in a space that has high quality food products, whatever is going to be there, soap or whatever, and somebody might make soap, or someone might
Absolutely.
Make hand towels. I mean, there are all kinds of stuff that could be sold there. It isn't just food, but certainly the store itself, the idea of the co-op, and people do understand what democracy means. I mean, in the sense that they would like a say. They don't know, they don't call it democracy, but that's what it is. Like when the British came here, I didn't realize that they wanted freedom of religion, but they wanted to be treated, trial by jury, and the decency of that, rather than the king deciding that you do this or you do that. And this is part of that, expressing yourself and feeling a part of things. I really like that, and I think you've made the point very clear that this is the reason for co-ops, and that they exist, and you can visit other co-ops and see what they are, but you're drawing on their ideas and their experience, so that's what you're going on, which makes it admirable the way you're presenting this, but so you would like to have it in Winsted somewhere that's easily accessible for parking, and finding the place, and not having to drive off the main
Not too much.
Not too much. No, it's maybe impossible, but whatever.
We have an identified location where we would like to be able to be, which is part of Winsted Edgeworks, what used to be called Lambert K. It's an old factory. There's been a industrial use of the site going back to the early 1800s.
Yes.
If you're have you heard of Little Red Barn Brewers, a new craft brewery that's opening?
I've heard of it. Yes.
Yes. They are part of Winsted Edgeworks as well, and we're hoping that if we are able to build ourselves to the level we need to be, that we'll actually be able to take the space right next to them. We think that it would be the synergy would be quite lovely.
Yes.
And the advantage of working with a developer like Parker Benjamin from the very beginning, there's some serious savings and efficiencies that are possible for us in that. But we have a long way to go.
Oh, of course.
We are at as of today, we are at 224 shareholders, member owners. We need to reach 300 before we can trigger our formal business plan study.
I see.
But we're going to need well over 1,000 shareholders to be able to open with confidence. Yes. And the speed at which we can get there depends on, and one part we're trying very hard working on developing funding so that we could actually have somebody doing outreach full time.
Yes.
But also we need to help our current member owners understand that this is our business. This is our business. If we want our business to succeed, each one of us needs to be proactive in reaching out to friends, family,
Yes.
coworkers, and bringing them along.
That's true.
You know, we have 224 shareholders today. If each one of us in the next week went out and found just one person,
Yes.
to become a
Yeah.
co-owner with us,
Yes.
we would blow past that 300 mark and be moving much, much further ahead. But, you know, we find it takes a lot of time to get to,
It does.
it takes a lot of time to get people to the point where they're willing to say, okay, here's my $20.
I believe in what you're doing.
Yes.
You know, they have to understand, and it takes 5 interactions, 7 interactions, maybe more. I've had the experience of attending Riverton Fair, representing the market and having conversations with people, and I go back the next year to Riverton Fair, and some of the same people are there, and they've got new questions.
Oh,
They've
yeah.
gone back and they've thought about
I
it,
see.
and they've
Yeah.
come up with new questions, and we have another conversation. And it wouldn't surprise me that I will have conversations with Riverton Fair goers over the years until
Yeah.
finally they say, "Oh, all right,
All right. Yeah.
here's my $20. You know, put me on the path."
So someone could give you $20,
And their
name is on the list. They are,
and they are a member owner,
and then they can just keep
and
giving you $20 or $50 or whatever
however it works
to pay
best
off
for
the
them
$200
till they're fully
right,
paid.
fully paid. I mean, that is such a generous, simple way. But for the average person to afford it, it's so minuscule in a sense.
It
you
seems
know?
it,
It
but
seems that way.
In a way, it's sometimes a confusing thing to me in a way where, you know, we're not talking about a huge amount of money.
No.
People spend $20
Oh, of
without
course,
thinking about it.
of course,
But this
yes.
is different enough. It's unfamiliar enough that people really have to get their mind around, okay, I'm going to be a co-owner of what? What does it mean to be a co-owner? What is really represented by that? They have to get comfortable with the concept before they're willing to fork over their 20. You know, it's just, this is just the way it is. If we were doing this organizing in Vermont, it would be a lot easier. Simply because there are co-ops all over the place in Vermont and in New Hampshire,
Yes.
and people just have more direct experience on an ongoing basis. It's less of an exotic thing. I mean, it's not like you're not signing your life away to
No.
become it's not a cult.
No.
Though I sometimes get accused of
You don't seem cultish.
because I'm so wrapped up in
Yes,
all of
well,
this.
you have to be, but that's
You know,
very good.
but it
It's
just
a good
and
trait.
we meaning, you know, board members, organizers, our volunteers. We just have to cultivate a spirit of generous patience about all of this. You know, yes, it seems obvious to us. Yes, it seems like a no-brainer. Why aren't you there?
Yes.
But that's not how it is.
No.
And we have
Face
to
it.
we have to meet people where they're at and take them by the hand and say, okay, we'll answer your questions. And if it takes a year to answer your questions, that's okay.
Now you do have meetings. I know there's one coming up Saturday.
On Saturday
but
we haven't.
people won't see this on time.
No,
to
not
do
for
that,
this.
So for
but
this.
we do.
But you do that.
We are working at doing monthly things. We have our business office in Winstead at 10 Bridge Street at Mad River Lofts. But we're also looking at doing events and doing similar kinds of public events wherever we can.
Yes,
We were
sure.
at Norfolk
I
Hub
see.
last month.
That's a good.
We have someone
way to-
who's keeps saying that they're going to make it possible for us to have an event at the Litchfield Community Center.
Oh.
So we're hoping that will happen.
good.
And some libraries will let us come, some won't because we're not a nonprofit.
Oh.
You know, that little bit of legalism makes a difference for some places. And again, we just have to, you know, that's okay.
I know your philosophy as a prophet is so much superior to nonprofits that I know. I mean, it's a great concept, and it's just honest. It feels to me, it's democratic. Gives people
if done
a
right,
reason.
done
yeah,
right,
done
it
right.
is.
And
Cooperative governance should be
yeah,
transparent.
Transparency is
Fully transparent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the board is one of the main ways that the shareholders will have the ability to have a direct influence on the day-to-day governance. Especially during our organizing phase, when the board is the core of what's moving things forward. But any member owner, any shareholder can stand for the board of directors, and all shareholders are empowered to vote for the board of directors, and have a very direct effect on how we move forward in that regard.
But just knowing that you're part of an organization or a group of people that are doing something new in the area, you're part of it, you're going to watch it develop, and then other people can come that are not members and take advantage of it. I mean, that's very generous to, in a sense. But I don't think it's unusual for people to feel that way. If they get that feeling from you, it just makes them feel good, I think, because where do you ever experience that around today? I'm thinking of, I don't know of anything in particular.
Certainly
like
not
that,
as like a functioning business.
No,
that's very
I
unusual.
know that's unusual, and it's for profit, but you're not pocketing the money and going off doing things on your own. I mean, it goes back into the group and into the society, the town, and affecting people's lives, making people feel better, people that can't afford it. There's a lot of people, as you say, that can't afford it. The poverty is so great in this country, and I like it when they say the economy is doing very well, the stock market's doing very well. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me at all, and people have to know that. But this is a way to get people in and let them know that they're part of this. Well, I think we're getting near the end of our time. It goes very quickly.
Yes.
But I think you made a good point. You really, I think, made it clear to me what a co-op is and what's to be expected. But let you say the last words.
You say the last word.
Am I the last word?
Yeah.
He's a good talker. Yes, very good. No, you do very.
I can talk good.
I hope
if they have questions.
Oh yes. Any?
Yes.
We have our website is madrivermarket.com.
Slowly.
Yeah, say it again.
Madrivermarket.com. All one word.
That's
if
easy.
you want to bypass it, and it's not the best website in the world, but we're working on that. There is the page called the shop, madrivermarket.com/shop. That's where you can buy a share online. There's lots of options to do that. You can sign up for our occasional newsletter, through email newsletter, through the site. We have a very active Facebook page at Mad River Market. So if people are Facebook users, there's a lot of information through our page, not just about us, but also other co-ops and things that are in the larger co-op world. Links to resources, all of that exists. We have a business office. If someone wants to reach out and wants to come and have a one-on-one meeting about stuff, we're more than willing to do that. The email address to use is info@madrivermarket.com, or people can call our telephone at 860-469-2259.
Say it again.
860-469-2259.
I believe we're going to be cut off soon.
Yes.
But thank you so much, both of you,
Thank
for coming.
you very
I
much.
Just loved this whole time, and let's
Well,
hope that
we look forward to coming back in some months and
think
be
that would
able
be
to
good.
tell you that we've had our.